Okay, welcome. Um, it's October 30th today, um, and just wanted to come on quickly this afternoon to talk about my podcast this week, which is called Healing Through Diet. And again, if you're following my project called 21 Hidden Root Causes of Disease, or dis-ease, because dis-ease, disease, you can figure that one out. Um, Basically, I've created this list, 21 topics long that I'm podcasting about. These are all oftentimes uncommon angles we come to find answers to our health issues or our distress or our suffering or our problems. Um, we don't always know what's causing our issues, which is why we go see specialists and we call a doctor or we call a healer. Um, and through my life, I've studied with a lot of different um, teachers, doctors, healers, um, and primarily the yogic path, um, and but lots of other things as I've mentioned, and it's it's brought me to a place of having explored a lot of different sources for the cause of an issue, and sometimes it can be a little maddening to have an issue that you can't find the cause of, and nobody seems to know what's the matter. And I talked about it in this recent podcast. It's like going on a wild goose chase, to find answers. So once again, what I've done here is created a list that and if you read the list, some of the topics may seem a little strange, esoteric, out there. Indeed they are, and and it's a good place to look for solutions. Is in places that we may not understand or may not believe is possible, or um, yeah, we may not really grasp. You know, this life is obviously quite a journey of learning deeper and deeper layers of what's possible and what it means to be alive and what is really happening here in this dimension. Um, so that's a little preface, and so again, there's lots of different kinds of topics on that list, but this week I was talking about diet, which is something we all are faced with, dealing with, or up against, yeah, working with in our lives on a daily basis. So, yes, we can heal through diet, and all the all the layers of what that means to source healthy food, to create healthy meals, to ingest in a healthy state of mind, and and of course to eliminate, which is the you know way more important than we give it credit, um, in our lives. So to have all those things healthy and sustainable and available to us. And, of course, we are facing a time when people are talking about growing our own food and shortages in the grocery stores. We don't know what that's all going to look like. But this is something that we may know how important it is, and we may come to see how important it really is, as perhaps it might get more challenging to meet those needs. And I don't know, maybe that won't happen, but um, and let's hope it doesn't. But so just knowing how important our diet is to our health and well-being, and keeping our brains functioning optimally. So you know there is, and I talked about this in the podcast. Hopefully you have a chance to listen to that. It's almost 50 minutes long. Um, but just briefly, I wanted to say, just wanted to cover just a couple things that I talked about in the podcast, and maybe you can dive into that, which is I was thinking the law of threes. So 3 topics, 3 points each. So the first is the idea of what, when, and how to eat. So I talk about that in the podcast. And each is very important. And we can't only focus on what we eat. We have to focus also on when we're eating. It can't be in the middle of the night or all day long, or like it's good to fuel yourself throughout the day, but not constantly, because we have to give ourselves a chance to digest and etc. Um, and then how we eat is also just as important. So again, eating while you're focused or sitting down, or not distracted by, say, media, or driving, or running out the door, and those kinds of things. So again, more info on that in the podcast if you want to have a listen. Podcasts are great because you can multitask while you listen. So um, that's why I was really into making podcasts, because it's not always sustainable to sit in front of our computer all the time. Okay, second of the 3 is I went into eating for your dosha, your Ayurvedic dosha. So of course, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and I go into that more in the podcast. So again, working with me to discover how best to eat for your dosha, for your constitution, for your elemental constitution: fire, water, ether, air, and what did I miss? Earth. Yes, earth, fire, water, ether, and air are the 5 elements. And Vata, Pitta, Kapha, we are a combination of those elements, and we have an imbalance in some of those elements, and it will cause us to eat, to need certain foods and to avoid certain foods, depending on your constitution. So again, if you choose to work with me around diet, that is something we would talk about, is eating for your constitution and what is your constitution. And the third of the 3 today points I'll make is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So some people need 3 meals a day. Some people need 5 meals a day. But it's less likely that you're going to need less than 3 meals a day, because I know a lot of people try doing the caloric reduction and doing the 2 meals a day, and I'm definitely not here to, I was going to say tell you what to do. I mean, if coming from research experience and yes, studying of Ayurveda and different systems for nutrition, yes, I could say if you don't have ideas about what is best for your body, you may not be making the right choices. And I would say across the board, there's a reason that we have a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner pretty much across cultures, is because our body needs to eat at least every 3 or 4 hours, across constitutions, Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. And again, the Vata person might eat 5 meals a day, and the Kapha person might eat only 3 meals a day, and obviously eating different, with different contents in those meals. But I know there's a sort of fad around intermittent fasting right now, and that can be like a short-term solution to getting, back on track, stabilized. But in the long run, it is my experience, and also from research, that we do need our 3 meals: our breakfast, our lunch, and our dinner. So those are the 3 things that, and some other areas I go into in the podcast more in depth if you want to have a listen. And I find this subject extremely important. you know, just obviously because it's not something we can avoid. It's not something we can take a day off of. Thinking about food, it's pretty constant. It's a big part of our life, and another thing I did talk about in the podcast was how eating disorders can get in the way of nourishment, clearly and obviously, but also how prevalent they are in our culture and how they can skew they can make things way more complicated when you're dealing with how to eat, because there's resistance in the way and there's belief systems in place around restriction, or how what's called body dysmorphia, and how your body actually looks compared to how you think it looks compared to how it actually looks. And that can cause a distortion around allowing yourself to have access to the right amount of food, the right amount of nutrition, and that can lead to some serious cognitive issues if you're malnourished, problems functioning, um, even lead to things like hair loss and such. So I do not underestimate that in dealing with any kind of issue. I would very much want to look at diet first to see how someone was eating, when they were eating, how they were eating, what is their relationship to food and nourishment, what is their relationship, say, in their family of origin to food and nourishment, what is their mother's relationship to food, their father's relationship to food, and how that influenced them and created a way for them to take in this life force that we need 3 times a day, at least every day. So, and again, if you relate this to the koshas that I've been talking about, we're talking about the first sheath, which is the physical, literally called the food sheath. So if we don't have that layer taken care of, if I would always want to approach healing starting with that base physical layer, because there's a lot of healing you can do just through that, weaving in energy and the energetics into food. And again, it affects our mind, our lower and our higher mind. Definitely how we eat will affect our mind. And so I think it's vastly, vastly important that we approach this as part of our healing. If we're having a healing crisis or any healing concerns, any concerns with our health. Please, I'm going to drop a little link to the sessions that I'm offering for these. I'm calling them Tap the Root. Again, I'm highlighting in the podcasts and my 21 hidden root causes list different areas that we could start to go down to figure out your challenge. But I would likely want to start with food, or at least touch on it, to get a sense of how that would be working in your life, and if that is working, and if you have a healthy relationship there with food. Because if you don't, again, no amount of some of these other things are going to necessarily help if you don't get that on board. And I talk about that too in the podcast. So I hope you have a chance to listen. Hope you have a chance to watch this and to comment. And I am available, as you know. So please reach out. And I think that's all I'm going to say for today. Just a quick little quarter of an hour. And I really hope you have a wonderful Halloween. It's a big big few days coming up, Halloween, and of course next week with the election. So take care of yourself, eat well, breathe well, love yourself, sleep well, and ground yourself. Do some grounding practices, and I'll talk to you next week. Okay, take care.